PwC and Deloitte, and we talked to some of the C-suite at Kyndryl. And one of the things that they were all very interested in was if all of this is individual work, they can use problems that they are experiencing in real time from their organizations, so that this becomes not only like an enablement offering, but also like a mini think tank, candidly, where they have access to folks like yourselves, like me, ProServe, et cetera. And we can sort of do the development for that partner's offering, if you will. That, yes, maybe they go off and make a ton of money, but they're using this platform to do it, where, they're spending with you, they're using AWS services, so they're spending with us. It is something that we wanted to consider. So that's just the one feedback on group components. The other was, and this might be, Michael, a question for you. Mm-hmm. The capstone and test components at the end of each week, is that just like a mini capstone component specific to what they learned? Yes. And then the capstone at the end is sort of okay, you individually passed these, you now need to restart and sort of show how you're combining all these elements, or yes, is it different?
That's exactly right. Okay. So at the end of each week, what happens is it's really just like, can we have you build the things that we just taught you? And then you do that for the first 3 weeks, and then at the fourth, it's like, can you build something now with all of it and not just the stuff that we did week by week? Right?
Cool. Yeah, no, then I'm totally on board. I think that'd be great. The other half day on Friday is like an office hours thing, something that you guys could facilitate, like during the half day capstone, can we have, I'm just going to use Michael as an example, but could we have Michael be available from like 8 a.m. to noon during that capstone period for people to come in and ask questions? Is that something we can include in this, or is that not what you guys had in mind?
That's actually pretty standard, actually. So usually we're on deck actually helping to shepherd, because what will happen is that as they're building the capstone, they're going to run immediately into blockers. And so usually, if we're doing it virtually, for example, we'll break them out into rooms and we'll be available to answer questions. And so at least one of us, the primary instructors, is always available to answer questions live. And so that's pretty standard practice for us around that, because if they get blocked, we want to unblock them immediately so they don't lose any time kind of waiting for responses from instructors.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Kevin, you made a quick comment there about the time between cohorts. So cohort one and track one, cohort one, track two. I think you said ideally 3 weeks off. Is that right? So 1 week on, 3 weeks off was the ideal?
Yeah. So, and I'm using it within just like a given month of, like, if we look at their work schedule, I need them to be able to work a 40-hour week, 3 of the 4 weeks. It's almost that's been something that candidly has given us the most traction with these organizations, is that we're able to go in and say, no. In a given month, we're only asking for 1 of the 4 weeks, right? And so it's to a certain extent, we're sort of like, let's be honest, they're not working 40-hour weeks, they're working 50, 60. So like, you can still have them hit their billable requirements in 3 weeks instead of 4. Like, you're just having them bill honestly is kind of like the phrasing I've said, of which I immediately got denials, and I was like, the call's not recorded. I did the same thing. You can, come on.
Kevin, I don't know if I told you, but I'm a former Bain guy. So
okay,
so I am laughing at that. Yeah. 40 hours.
It's like,
okay, man. So what you're saying is something like this, but more spread out. So we want to have 3 weeks between each, but in that 1 week block of time.
Yeah, and for us, like, mostly you, I guess, like, you'll be busy each week. Like, the way that you have these different groups is correct. I would just say that, like, potentially the way this works is there would be no overlap between the cohorts, which does give us the flexibility of, I've been bouncing around the idea of like 1 reschedule per learner. So like, if you, like, life happens, if you run into something where suddenly you're unavailable the week of the 14th, that's fine. You have 2 other opportunities to make this up. If you're in cohort 4 and something's going to happen, like, we have opportunities for you to do it the week before, et cetera. So I don't want that to be too complicated, but it's kind of like a, one-time thing. We get it. If you have a life event every single month when you do this, like, that sounds more like your normal life as opposed to something that's happening. So, go take a look.
We've definitely done that before as well, Kevin, particularly when we have overlapping runs. So but to your point, we do try to minimize, like, if it becomes a habit, we're not fans of that. So, yeah. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So basically, you mentioned the scenarios as possibly informing the capstone projects, especially on a per kind of company basis. One of the things that would be great, and I don't know if this could even be possible, is that the curriculum is, as far as a technology standpoint, is particularly derived with obviously a specific opinionated set of technologies, right?
Yeah.
And so it'd be interesting if there were any scenarios there that could possibly affect what we would teach. Or are we talking about just variations again, in the scenarios with the existing technology? That's the only reason I ask, is because if there's a risk of that, I would love to see any or all versions of any of those problems that they're running into, because I think especially if it's going to shift the kind of technology curriculum, obviously that would be significant.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. I mean, I think you kind of brought this up when you were going through things. Like the only real requirement that we'll maintain is we, meaning AWS, I am interested in this, but AWS, the organization, is not necessarily interested in multi-cloud stuff, but any third-party service that you might need, we should be prepared to teach, right? So I view them all as interchangeable based off of who comes into the cohorts. So if we get 120 people into this pilot and none of them use Terraform, they're all using something else, okay, we'll kind of show you some Terraform stuff, I guess, but we're going to focus elsewhere. So that's my comment just in terms of flexibility on services. And then Michael, your comment, I think, let's do that. I have no objections to sort of the flexibility or change out as needed.
Okay. Well, and I mention it because I think it's not as, we have tons of content, so probably what the possibilities are probably well within our scope. But, depending on what it is, we may not have it. So it may not be something that's just directly interchangeable. Terraform, easy, right? There's really only one choice there. But if someone came back and said, hey, we don't want Kubernetes, we'd like Docker Swarm, which would be unusual considering Kubernetes dominance, we do have material for that, and we could probably insert it, but it wouldn't just be rip and replace. It'd have to be, we have to have some time to think that out. So
yeah, and I guess the positioning for me in Kubernetes is I personally hate Kubernetes. It just doesn't agree with me as an individual. At a spiritual level, it disagrees with me. But every engagement I ever worked on, it was always okay, so we're going to deploy this in containers and we're using Kubernetes, every single one. And so I sort of just viewed it as, even if you're using Docker Swarm, even if you're using Amazon's proprietary container service, at some point in your career, you're going to come across Kubernetes.
Right.
And as a self-sufficient architect or a cloud consultant, you have to be able to do it. I would almost challenge someone to be you need to show me proof that you've never been in a position where you had to use Kubernetes if you're in this space. So that's kind of the driver behind it. I do hear you though on how, depending on the service, it would make it a full custom job, yeah. I guess is right. So
yeah, and Kevin, I want to say that I share your hate-love relationship with
Kubernetes,
but I also recognize its value, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of that. Mine is always networking on all my courses. Whenever I'm talking to someone, I'm always just you need to understand that I know how to do this and I'm going to help you, but I despise the topic of networking. And they're just understood. And I was okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, here's the answer. Here's how you do it. But don't come back to me with these questions. Go to someone else.
I'm going to send you a talk I just saw that said why no one wants to be a network engineer anymore, by some really famous network engineers at AWS, by the way. I'm going to send you some. I'm going to send you a link.
Yeah, please do. Cool. No, but otherwise, I think this outlines what we're looking for.
Perfect.
I think the only comment on curriculum I'd make was there was a solution architect or solution architecture fundamentals.
Yeah.
I would argue whether that's needed. I think the expectation is really just we could go into more advanced things unless it's covering other topics that I'm not aware of.
No, that's a good question. We're assuming that the now 6, unless they added a 7th in the last week that I'm not aware of, the 6 pillars of the well-architected framework would at least 4 of those would probably be relevant. And so even though they're coming in with professional level certifications, I know this sounds weird, but not every architect that I've met actually really understands how to apply them from a business to technical perspective. They understand it from a technological perspective. So our thought was to kind of reaffirm, hey, this is reliability, and here are the questions that you ask, and these are the things that fit for that. Same with security, same with performance efficiency, same with cost optimization. To kind of really just level set them on these are the things that you actually really need to know about the well-architected framework to apply it. Now, if you don't find value in that, glad to shift it. There are plenty of other things to talk about. I mean, everything from soft skills to just continuing the depth of, translation from business requirements to technical requirements. But that's the reason that I put that there. I thought, you know what? Let's level set them on the actual application of the well-architected framework, because we're actually covering the cloud adoption framework on day one. So I figured between the two, that's going to teach them to listen, the questions to ask, how to think and frame up solutions. And so that's why that's there. So if
cool.
it works,
no, then
great.
no arguments. I don't disagree.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's different. Like, I think, Michael, we talked about this when we were in DC like a year or two ago. But like, I was raised in the AWS ecosystem, so like, well-architected frameworks, like one of the first things that you really need to go look at.
Right.
There are other cloud consultants and cloud engineers that are not. So I totally agree that like everyone knows what it is. Not everyone knows how to use it and how to build with it. So that's what's covered. Don't disagree.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think this looks great. I think it embodies what we're looking for. I think the pacing we mess with a little bit, obviously, as discussed, but questions I have for you, which you very well could be presenting next, is what's the general size of a cohort group? And what would evaluation criteria look like for those capstones / individual weekly components? Like, how do we determine that people are appropriately learning what they need to?
Maybe we can handle those in reverse order, if you don't mind. I'll have Michael speak to the first one here, talking about how we use evaluation, and then we can pivot to, the way that we structure it and what we can do to kind of figure out the right size. Michael, do you want to talk through the evaluation piece?
Yeah, so the evaluation honestly follows kind of similar to AWS's certification playbook, right? It's multiple choice, multiple response, basically. And what we do is we basically take the material, particularly if we customize the capstones for client asks, which is not uncommon. We'll actually like put those questions into both the pre-test and the post-test. And the idea there is that we're basically testing against the entire knowledge base of what's actually in the course. So that typically just follows kind of almost like a standard certification test, multiple choice, multiple response. And, the size of the test can vary. I think, sometimes we hover around 50 questions, sometimes it's a little less, sometimes a little more, but 50 is pretty standard for us. And that's basically what we're testing, is everything that's inside the course itself and any kind of particular things that are like unique to the capstone. Have you touched a repo before? What is the CI/CD pipeline? What is GitLab's role? Just like questions like that. So just to make sure that they may already have the knowledge, but it also allows us to know like where they're coming at. Because within a class, a cohort, and this is kind of a ratio of instructors, to students, right? There's some people who are going to be really struggling with certain concepts, and there's some people who are going to be okay with certain concepts. And so we usually take that on a case-by-case basis. But it also helps us later on when we want to form the capstone groups, which, again, I acknowledge that you were like, no, we prefer individual. But when we do that, it actually helps us right-size the group so there's balance in the groups. So even just to say this, by the way, to answer your earlier question, first of all, before I do that, did I answer your question about what the pre-tests and the post-tests and the assessments are?
Yeah. No, we're good.
So the other thing about individuals is that we might actually still put them into groups, especially if there's like companies, so that we can avoid that company conflict. We might still put them into groups because the students actually do end up kind of supporting each other, even if they're responsible for individual delivery and individual work. Sometimes it's really healthy for them to be in a small group where they can ask questions, because some people feel more comfortable in a team size of 5 to 9, versus if we put them in a 30-person group, you're going to get a lot of inhibition where people are not going to ask questions, because it feels at that point like public speaking, as you well know, which terrifies most people. So just want to say that individual projects, individual delivery, no issue. We might talk to you about like still keeping some kind of cohort kind of mentality for like companies just to support each other.
And Michael, could you talk through a little bit how we evaluate the capstone projects themselves, like the hands-on labs pieces?
Yeah, so the lab piece is what we typically do is that once people are kind of done with their labs, we're like, show us. It's like that bad scene from that old movie in The Matrix where he's like, I know Kung Fu. And he's like, show me that you know Kung Fu. So when they're finished with the capstone, what we'll do is we'll pull them into another room, virtually or physically, and we'll say, okay, show me what you did. And they're like, yeah, I got here. And I was like, did you, we'll ask them questions. Did you run into any problems? Yeah, I tried to get GitLab to do this whole thing and it didn't. And so what happens is that through that questioning, that's how we kind of evaluate, because it's really binary. did you build the lab? Did it do the things that we asked you to do? And what we're also interested in is like, what was your experience? What did you pick up? Do you have further questions? Why did you run into a gotcha? Is there a way to avoid that gotcha, that challenge the next time you do it? So it's typically we evaluate it basically, did you check the boxes? And then we try to like suss out, like kind of get more insight into the challenges they ran into, what went well, what went badly. And so we'll usually pull them aside. And so much like the thesis defense, it's actually just more of like a conversation with us just checking off like, okay, yeah, they delivered software. Oh yeah, there's some monitoring. Okay, great, they used containerization. So it's really just that simple. Okay, was there another question? Did I forget one?
I don't think so.
I think we just wanted to talk about cohort size. Is that right?
Yeah.
Correct. We'll just flip to the end here. So I think, we had developed the pricing here on the assumption that we were going to have 30-person cohorts facilitated by 2 full-time instructors. We can flex depending on how big the cohorts are. We'll obviously determine how many instructors we have per module. And then the only other thing to call it is we basically, looked at the development cost at cost. So not marking it up at all and spread it out across those deliveries. And so that price would change depending on how many students total we would be training. But in terms of how we chunk this out and how we broke it out across those different weeks, we can kind of play around with what that final cost would look like.
Cool. Yeah, no real questions here. This might just be something for Alan and I,
Sure.
Tim, to take a look at. Predominantly around like the billing component, I think. So like, not to say that we can't have you submit like an invoice. Just like the way, I don't know how familiar you are with like AWS budgeting and like the allocations we get from like the partner organization by Ruben, but a lot of this money is like parked for specific use for like ATPs. And so one of the conversations we had with Alan and his team was like, we want to be careful with how we use acceleration funding. Like we don't want it to seem like we're taking away from the delivery of AWS courseware.
Sure.
I view this as AWS courseware. So like courseware and like we're talking about AWS. So I think that they're interchangeable. It would be very interesting to see how we can do this in a way that allows us to pull from that PSAP funding bucket, since that's the money's there and we don't necessarily need approval to use it because we already have approval to use it. I say this just as like a problem I see coming up, just in like the natural way that I would want to do this would be you send us an invoice.
Right.
I think that would cause a ton of problems because I don't think we can pull from that bucket, at least not without going through other approvals. So not to say that's a deal breaker, just as like a heads up that like there's an easy way to do it and a hard way to do it. I'm happy to do it either way you want, but the easy way seems really nice. So I just, it's just right there.
Yeah, just to chime in. So I didn't realize that the funds were going to come out of that PSAP allocation all up. So Tim, it may just be a matter of us, redesigning it so there's a per student cost that we can align with the standard PSAP invoice process, so that it makes it a little smoother.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're not asking, I don't think, I want to be very clear. I'm not asking for a discount above and beyond what you clearly are already providing us. I just want it to I want it to look like PSAP pricing so that we can pull from that bucket.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. It allows us to train some more students and candidly, get you more funding for doing the work. So I want to make sure that we're as fair as possible and that we don't let legal be the blocker in doing this.
I will be as flexible as my accounting staff lets me be. So I will buy Leo a bottle of bourbon before we have this conversation. Then we can figure out how to make it work. But that makes sense to me.
Cool. And then I'm assuming, I feel like I've met a majority of you in passing at reInvent. Like Greg, I think that's where we met because I know we're connected on LinkedIn. Yeah. But if you are all going and we get this off the ground, I think we can, there will definitely be a bottle of bourbon that I bring for all of us to clink glasses for having pulled this off. So
for sure,
make your best efforts.
So Kevin, any other questions that we can answer? Any other, things that we can kind of cover down on here?
So I'm going to get to the question with an update here. So we've been having meetings with a lot of our identified partner organizations that we want included within this pilot program. Candidly, I've been selling the idea basically and building up excitement and interest. We're probably going to open like applications for this that I will review the minute they come in to accept and decline applicants. How much lead time do you typically need, like the information of the actual students before you can book classes? Or can we kind of like, I know this is risky, but like, can we work backwards from you like blocking a class with X number of students and we just fill them as we get them?
We can definitely do that. I think the bigger timeline is just confirming when the start date was so we can start on the development work. And candidly, like we've already leaned into that a little bit. I think we were just waiting on confirmation that we are doing this before we, really get going there. But I think Greg and Tapas, tell me if I'm volunteering you for something that we can't do, but I'm pretty sure we're pretty flexible with the actual information.
Yeah, no, we are. I mean, we already had a whole team ready to go to deliver this training if we started October 7th. I have 6 trainers lined up, including Michael and Steve Robinson, plus 4 others that I didn't introduce that I've been working with for a very long time. So we could have delivered this whole thing starting October 7th. So knowing we have a little bit more time, and we already did start some of the effort on the development side. I think there's 6 courseware developers outside of all the trainers that we have involved. And these are people that we've been working with forever. I know one person on the team I've been working with for 20 years. So yeah, we're ready. Flexibility, yes. We just need to say, hey, we're going to put 20 people in this cohort that starts on October 17th. Filtering the names to us after that point is very easy for us to manage. So yeah, that's definitely very, very doable. There's another question I had, but I just kind of lost my train of thought. But that's okay. If it comes back, I will let you know.
No worries.
I know what it was. What do you need from us? Because you're going to have the SIs, these companies says, okay, this is great. What is this program?
Yeah.
What are the course descriptions? What's the layout of it? What can we do to make that easier for you to hand over a package and say, here's our marketing kit for this program? Because we'll obviously help you with that aspect of it.
Basically, I would want a shareable version of like the course outline you talked about. So like remove the hours requirements from those capstones, but like those weekly tiles that you have by those 4 boot camps, shareable version of that with dates ripped out, and then sort of like list of services type thing, list of services that they'll be exposed to. So like we're going to look at Terraform, we're going to look at Kubernetes, we're going to look at the web, like that kind of stuff would be very helpful. My other comment I was going to make is let's just make the decision to push this back 2 weeks to October 21st. I want to be realistic with like what we can do. Like this week, next week, the week after, like I'm still having initial meetings with organizations to just get them aware of this. I don't think like quick turnarounds on application, like getting 120 students to 200 students is not going to be a problem. Getting 200 students that will actually show up to this, I think is. So we want to be diligent in who we're having apply and who we're admitting. So October 21st just gives us, I think, all the breathing room we need to do this right.
Okay. But another question I have for you is the programs that we run, and it varies by client, but there's a lot of reporting functionality that we include with these programs. Knowledge gain, information on the tests and quizzes, who's doing what, who would want access to that. I mean, this is just, we can have this conversation later, but this is just food for thought for you, because there's a lot of different ways that we can do it based on the information that you need to see real time on progress on how things are going. And the SIs, would they want access to that as well?
Yeah, so I certainly want access to it. I'll take it in, I'll do the cloud joke, the near real time, since real time is too expensive. But I saw some chuckles. Okay, I saw some chuckles. It landed well. I would love to sort of make this a bit, I would like to be very specific, I guess, with what we're providing partners. So I don't necessarily know, like if we had specific knowledge gain areas or like strengths and weaknesses, like heat maps. I don't necessarily know if they care about that. Like, I don't know what they would do with that information. That said, I think like a pre-test versus weekly test performance and post-test improvements capstone progress, like trouble areas, like I think that could be very cool information to like almost send to the learner and CC the person that sponsored them in the program. Like, I know that kind of sounds scary, but that almost seems like, hey, we're doing two things. One, we're keeping the organization updated, but two, we're giving this individual that's in the program, like candidly, like email FaceTime with someone very senior in their organization to say like, this person came in at this level and is making leaps and bounds across these domain areas. Like, this is where their proficiencies are. Like, I would have killed for that at PwC if there was like a senior partner on the email chain where they were just like, Kevin actually knows how to do this stuff. Like, to me, that seems like an awesome opportunity.
That is some of the stuff we share with other clients that are in the SI space. And the other thing, as much as it sounds like we can't do it because the team dynamic doesn't work, we invite career managers to the final presentations when we do these. And I watch the final, they're awesome. I love watching them. And the participants love it too. It's like you're saying, my senior manager is watching what I accomplished. And it's a really awesome thing to do. So in any scenarios where we can actually get a team together that's from the same company, that would be a pretty cool way to do it, to have them show up. Michael's done a million of those capstones where we watched it. And, it's pretty cool because they'll say, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, here's what we learned. No, it wasn't perfect, but now we know how to do it better. Yeah. It's a really cool thing to watch. And they come at it from different angles. Not everybody uses the same approach, same tools. I love watching them. So anyway, I have one coming up in 2 weeks with what Steve Robinson's doing right now. So it's fun to watch.
Yeah, Kevin, one other thing I wanted to mention is the capstone, as Michael talked about evaluating the subjective way, there is also, along with that goes a rubric that gives objective evaluation of all capstones. So as you were talking about reporting, that rubric would also be coming for each of the students to their partners.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and I don't know, like, I guess I saw your chart in terms of like stakeholder management and everything else. I'm pretty sure I'm all of those roles on the AWS side, with the exception of like maybe the overall sponsor is Mark Daigle or Kelvin Mayo, one of the two, in terms of just someone that like defends this to leadership, right? Like this, I think I shared this early, but this is something that like is much higher than Marine. Like, this is something we've been told to explore this from like Akpong, who's the leader for global services. He's the one that kind of gave us this mandate. So that said, I want to make sure that the reporting that's being fed out, like, I want it to be sustainable enough that like I can handle doing it all, just because I know I'm not going to get any help for the pilot. That said, like, I'm not totally opposed to having you guys send this with us on CC, but that is something that I'll probably want to talk to just like our legal rep about, just in what their preferences are. It has nothing to do with you guys, just what they'd like us to do.
We can also have them help prepare some reports, and then you can just filter and send it out. So we can do a lot of the heavy lifting, and you can tell us what to customize that too. We have a team that's capable of doing that. Yeah. Kevin, I guess the question would be, what would be next steps in your mind here? What would be the most helpful?
Well, I guess Alan, any concerns or thoughts on just this presentation, or like I'm putting you on the spot to a certain extent, but like Excel training, like any reservations you have about moving forward here, or anything that I should be aware of?
None whatsoever. I think the biggest thing, sort of we'll have to work through, area of concern for me is just figuring out the billing piece, right? And I think that can be easily done by figuring out a day rate versus number of training days, and working that through the existing PSAP structure.
Cool. This is more just spitballing, Tim. I don't mean to delay on the answer. So we have an ongoing process internally for trademarking on just like the engagement ready concept and structure. Sure. There would be probably a agreement type that would be very similar to what Excel training has signed in the past for like digital provider, et cetera. The area that we're working towards is essentially like you continue to own all the underlying curriculum that you guys are developing. You just can't necessarily go market it on your own as engagement ready in the same structure. So like sort of approaching it from an element of like what AWS legal would accept, what I feel is to a certain extent fair, is maybe that's my negative strategy on the business front of I approach things that way, or I shouldn't.
We very similar conversations we've had with other clients. They're like, hey, if you built it for client X, don't sell it to client Y saying it's client X's boot camp. So we're very familiar with that, and I don't think that'll be an issue.
Cool.
And given that I'm our legal department, I don't think we'll have our legal folks will have a problem with that either.
Love it. I wish I was my legal department. I'd just be like, I have no issues.
Well, I didn't say my wife is a contract attorney, so usually it's me hiding stuff so I can sign it without her finding out.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I think the only next steps would be, I guess it's cool. I guess I am the decision authority. So I say let's rock and roll. I think this is great. Let's start building. Let's work towards October 21st. What I will do is if you can get me those marketing materials sooner rather than later, that would be very helpful, just as I kind of put together like a draft application form that I'm just going to kind of be giving to people to upload into a Box account. With whoever's on this call, whoever should be on we should probably set something up like that moving forward starting next week. 30 to 45 minutes. Whenever we can find time, I think would just be good to hear issues you're having, ideas, changes we need to make, as well as for me to just give you guys updates on hey, here's the number of applicants we've had so far. Here's numbers and how we're looking. And then I will work with Alan behind the scenes for our side of the pricing piece to see if we can come up with something. But yeah, let's definitely figure out the billing thing sooner rather than later. Cause I know we have the money. It's the acceleration funding is kind of like the Fort Knox of money, where it's like once it's in, we can spend it so long as it's specifically for this. And the minute you try and redirect it, all the APO accountants go nuts and they're like, no, you can't do this. So yeah, that's the one piece.
Perfect. Well, we'll work it out, and I will. If you could send over a couple of dates, Kevin, I can make sure that the right folks. I think all of us can probably clear our calendars of anything that's there. So we'll work around your schedule and make sure that those stakeholders are there for that meeting. But really looking forward to this. I think this is something that we're extremely excited about. I think definitely within our wheelhouse, and looking forward to knocking this pilot out of the park.
Sweet. One question for you that's very forward-looking. I'm just going to go ahead and say we're going to be successful with this. I think this is going to be very well received. There might be some tweaks we need to make. Think on how big we can scale, I guess. To a certain extent, I'm not necessarily interested in just saying, oh, it works, so I'm going to just, I'm going to work with Alan to give it to every single ATP. Not really something I'm focused on. If we wanted to scale this next year to 4,000 people, would you be able to accommodate that at the same class size? If not, what would the investments on your side be to go get the resources to do it? And what would that price look like as we go up? So no need for an answer now, but I'd love to just be thinking about those problems that we might have 6 months from now, so that when we see that this works really well, we just get to say, great, let's sign an SCA with Excel training, and let's see how big we can go before you say uncle.
Perfect. That's the kind of thing I love to hear. We will figure out how to build it. So we'll get a better answer back to you here, Kevin. But thank you again. If you could send over those times to set up that meeting, and really look forward to it. Could I keep the internal team for 5 minutes after this, please?
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for the presentation.
Thanks,
Michael, Greg, great to see you guys again and reconnect.
Yeah,
and
good seeing you as well.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Kevin.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Hey, I'll stay on for 2 seconds as well.
Alan, just want to confirm, we did just win that. Is that right? Am I confirming that? Okay.
Well, he did say, let's go. So
phenomenal job,
I
guys.
take that as a purchase.
Yeah.
First of all, Alan, thank you from the bottom of our heart here for being our advocate throughout this entire thing.
Sure.
And Michael, obviously crushed the presentation. Awesome that you knew him, and thank you for the help. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Plus, you have awesome hair, dude.
That's right. You know what it was? It was the microphone. At the end of the day,
I'm jealous of the weave, man.
It was the wave and the gladiatorial microphone. That makes total sense,
right.
Actually. It's intimidating.
That's right.
Yeah, I was just going to say quickly, the one thing, and Mark and I have been sort of texting back and forth. If you guys could, post revision, of the structure,
Mhm.
come back to me with number of training days,
Absolutely.
assuming, Mark, that $280 a day PSAP rate. That I think is going to be the easiest way to cut the cake here. So I could just go back to Kevin and say, hey, I'm good if we call it 32 days of training at the PSAP rate of $280. I think we'll be able to get that approved very swiftly and easily. But I want to make sure that we give him the precise number, given the couple of moving parts we talked about.
For sure.
Cool. So that's all I got.
Perfect.
Well,
Alan,
job.
thank you so much. I'll connect with you tomorrow.
Talk
Thanks.
to you later.
All right.
Bye.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Really good.
Any concerns, questions, comments before we kick this off?
I do think we should all be getting Michael's microphone like that. I was sitting here thinking to the presentation, he sounds so good.
It's like, man, I know. I got the stupid headset on. I'm like,
Michael can do that without the microphone. That's the thing. Like, I brought the coursework development team together. We're like, okay, Michael is teaching, give me a plain blank piece of paper. I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm not doing that. But I'm happy you get the vote of confidence. So yeah.
4,000 students.
Yeah, we are built for it. We'll do it.
We can do it.
That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Michael, do you want me to call him Moonshot for you?
Please.
I'm joking. We'll talk about that offline.
First of all,
We'll deal with that later.
Michael, I definitely owe you a bottle of whiskey or whatever your drinking preferences. So I'll get with Greg and figure out what you like. But thank you.
Yeah.
And
anytime.
what do you guys need to kick this thing off?
Well, I do have one concern I just want to voice before I answer that question is that
Sure.
I do want to point out that the concern I raised about him wanting to customize the capstone and not having curriculum to match, that's risky. So I just want to make sure that we're all level set on that like he can't I don't mind like scenario like non-functional requirement things that he wants to add to the whole thing, but if he's like, hey, we don't want we want to use Jenkins, we have Jenkins material, but like that requires a slight rework, and so like I just want to be upfront about it. The other thing I want to point out is that in addition to that risk is that traditionally what we have done for capstones, just so everybody can hear this, is that we let the student build it from scratch. All we give them is an account, and we let them go to town, right? We put some guardrails in there. So I just want to make sure, because what I heard from Kevin is that there was an assumption that we are somehow going to craft something beyond that, everything necessary to give them an account. Like we're going to craft like some prerequisites or put technology in there or other things. And so I just want to caution that, because I didn't want to clarify and take up time with where we were at, but we definitely need to make sure that he is clear, right?
I think my understanding from the initial conversation, by the way, I'm the least qualified person in this room right now to be talking to this, but my understanding was that we were going to craft scenarios based around like a couple of different requirements that they were going to then build from scratch.
Agreed. Build from
and
scratch. Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page, because if all of a sudden we're like, hey, I want to build a couple of scenarios and they all have technology components, and then there's a level of effort and investment, that's not what I was thinking. We can do that. It's just not what I was thinking as far as flexibility.
So there is a bigger worry. The bigger worry is the very beginning of the call. He said, we are flipping the capstone. And he said, the capstones you gave me is very good. That will be used for the apprenticeship program, not for here. We need 500 to 700 level capstones. And I didn't stop him because that was the beginning of the call. But I think the definition has changed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so those are the two things I just wanted to highlight. We should definitely make sure we're clear
We
on
can
that.
clarify that very quickly.
Yeah.
We do. So let's do this. I will find out when Kevin is available, and I'll send that out. And then let's have a pre-call with just like the must-have requirements, RFIs if needed. We need to track down. Makes sense?
Yeah. So I will jot down the meeting minutes. I have like 2 pages of meeting minutes here.
Thank you.
Because we need to summarize that, and that will become the starting point. Please add to that. I will try to put it in where should I put it? Like a SharePoint. We've got to give Michael access. That way we can edit it and get going from there. But phenomenal. We have been gunning for this for 3 weeks. Got it.
Great job, guys.
Yeah, I guess the only once we understand what the schedule is going to look like, because I've got a lot of people on hold that now I have to rejig that a little bit, but it may obviously give us time to get the content done. And I need to know what resources I'm need to tell you're being rescheduled and which ones I'm keeping, because there's about 6 different instructors I had lined up for this. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So end of tomorrow.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, end of tomorrow.
What's that?
Let me give you a schedule end of tomorrow. It'll be the development and delivery schedule. That way we know when we need who.
Yeah, and then we'll talk through it maybe on Monday, and then I can get back to these folks. And Michael, part of that has to do with you. I mean, we had talked about this also, but you have a full-time job. I always pull you back into this stuff. When I saw this, I'm like, I gotta call Michael. He's gonna love this shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, you'll be all over this, and I know you're loving code clouds, so timing's good. This is the second time my timing's been good with you.
Yeah.
So
we'll talk.
We'll have to. I mean, I think the pushback in time you said is better for you.
It is, right? And don't forget, by the way, I have a course. So anyway, we'll work out those details. Yeah. Definitely.
No. Okay, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
I appreciate
Fantastic.
it.
Thanks, team.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.